Here, let me see. How's this look? Yeah. So yeah, I moved, and so I have a loft studio now, and I had these before.
Okay.
They were always in another room in my previous place, and they went around sort of a gallery effect around above the doorways in my previous place.
Okay.
But the wall is bigger here. Like this wall is too big for the album wall before, so I just put them in a row here. In
That's
frame,
fair.
right? So
I'm in the same situation now where like this is the first time in my life I have too much space, and now I'm just trying to like fill it with crap that means nothing.
yeah, I don't really do that. I'm a minimalist in a lot of ways, and so I like having a lot of space, to be honest. And the last thing I want to do is just accumulate more stuff, you know.
Oh yeah.
So,
I mean, I care more about covering like the walls than putting stuff on shelves, but that's my only concern.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I do a lot of shooting here, so.
Oh, that's smart.
So yeah, so I want to keep it open for, when artists come through or people I'm interviewing here, or podcasts I might do here. So yeah.
Sure. Well, I guess I'm gonna let you announce it. What is it that's going on? Why are we here today?
We are talking about BTSN, Behind the Scenes Network, the future of access entertainment. It's an organization that I would say was founded a couple of years ago. But we've been behind the scenes developing a streaming platform that focuses on telling the stories of the people who create the art we all enjoy. Right now, we are in a soft launch phase, so to speak. We're right before a soft launch phase. We're available on Roku. We're available on Fire Stick. We're available on web. We haven't officially launched. We haven't had our official launch yet, but we already have 500,000 plus, almost 600,000 users. And
awesome.
Currently, there are a number of different podcasts that are available. We have a number of different documentaries that are available on the platform. But our focus, especially for the content that we're producing in-house, is to really get closer to how movies or albums or restaurants, all the work that goes into them, tell those stories, dive deeply into that type of conversation. And we're having a great time. I've been down with the company since September. And,
nice.
And you've done a lot of great work as well under the BTSN banner. So we appreciate
Well, thank you.
Definitely, man. So it's great to be here.
Well, I'm excited to be part of a thing that you're working on. I mean, I guess this is going to be like the very short tooting my own horn section, but I'll keep this simple, or I'll keep this brief. You've come on Sool Radio a number of times. I think the first time was like 2016, like the first year I was doing it. Mm-hmm. And, I reached out initially because I was a fan of you. I was a fan of Jude. So what was it about this show that made you want to bring it on the network?
Well, I just think that you host incredible conversations. I think one of the things that's most important for anybody in the content space is you have to be a go-getter. You have to have passion for it. You have to be in love with it. I mean, we're really talking about something that people can find any and everywhere. So even to dive into that space, it takes a special kind of person. And then the high quality conversations you have, the high quality production value, and then you're just effortless knowledge of things that are happening in music and television and film and entertainment is exactly the type of voice that we're honored to have on the platform.
Well, I appreciate you having me. Did I see that you're with Music 360 now too?
I am. I'm working with Music 360. I mean, that's interesting too. I've quietly been working with them for the past 2 years. Music 360 is Barry Hankerson's music streaming platform. It's the intersection between social media and music. So in a sense, it's social media powered by music. The app has just now been approved in the App Store. It's available on iOS. You can download it now. It's not quite yet on Android, but it's just a really phenomenal project. A very interesting look at what I truly believe is the ultimate one-stop shop of everything social and everything streaming. So we have all the music that you can find everywhere else. We have Aaliyah's entire catalog, which is the only place you can find that now.
That took for fucking ever to get anywhere.
Yeah, I mean that's Barry. I mean that's his company. Barry Hankerson's Aaliyah's uncle, and he's the founder of Black Ground Entertainment. So everything Aaliyah, everything Tank, everything. Timbaland, Magoo, Tony Braxton, like that's, one of the awesome things that he's created in his life that has left an impact on the world.
Oh,
And
is that why the Timberland Magoo albums just showed up on streaming?
Anything Blackground just really got here. And so that was, I don't want to say that was part of it. I think that there was a lot more going on with some of the choices that Blackground made when it came to not making their music available on streaming. Again, they've been working on this project for 5-10 years potentially. It takes a long time to build just an incredible app, and just the functionality that's available on Music 360 is stuff I haven't seen in the marketplace anywhere. So that's been a lot of fun. Right now I'm on the content side with them, of course, to some degree, but I'm also the community moderator. So I put together the whole strategy around how we're going to make sure that our community is not some toxic cesspool that these things can turn into. And then I've been recruiting people around, at least around the country and around the world, to also be a part of the moderation team. And so that was an interesting project for me because I haven't done anything that I don't know. I mean, I haven't done anything that was this community focused, and just putting together the methodology and ideating around the tools necessary to moderate a platform that's going to be really big. But I'm having a great time with it. It's a great team. There's really brilliant people involved. People are going to see this app is going to be very loud, especially with Aaliyah's album coming out soon. So there's a posthumous Aaliyah album that's on the way. That's going to be, loudly connected to Music 360 in one way or the other. There's certain things that Music 360 does that you just can't. I mean, one, it's entirely encrypted as well. You know what I mean? So it has no
data mining when it comes to like what you're listening to.
We're not data mining. We're not selling your stuff. Nice. It's encrypted. You can go be yourself. The only way I can even see certain things, I can see the overall community, but if you're sending DMs to other people, I can't see that. I can only see it unless people are complaining, right? So that part right there is always intriguing to me because I'm tired of getting sold all the time. I feel like they should be paying me for my data. It's my data. Shouldn't this go the other way? But,
absolutely.
That's one thing I think is great about them. If you have the option to listen to music, whether that's on from a digital sound or an analog sound. If you prefer an analog sound, when you play it on analog, it turns into an actual turntable that you can scratch. There's a feature that's coming in the future. You turn it sideways, it's 2 turntables. You can make your own mixes. If there's other people listening to a song at the same time as you can see everybody who's listening to the same song as you are and build your network that way. So you can reach out to people who have like-minded taste in music. It has the Instagram functionality, the Twitter functionality, the TikTok functionality, and there's a few other surprises that I can't name yet that are already built into the back end that when they launch on future versions, it's going to be incredible. So, you know how in a lot of ways, if you have a YouTube channel, for example, in a way you're your own content network, like your own TV platform to a degree.
Sure.
And there's some functionality within Music 360 that kind of turns everybody into their own, radio coordinator if they wanted to be. So it's a very forward-leaning company with technology I haven't seen in the marketplace. So that's exciting as well.
So is there going to be a spot for podcasting as well?
Yes.
Nice. Definitely be looking into that.
Word up.
Looking for someone other than SoundCloud to get my $16 a month. But
is that what you use? Are you strictly on SoundCloud? Do you
I'm on Sound, I mean, technically, and that's where it goes to my RSS. And I've been mainly just posting to YouTube. I think my most recent audio only episode is like Iced Tea, and that was 6 months ago.
Yeah.
So yeah. I mean, it's more pivoting toward video anyway, and I've been like reteaching myself how to edit. It's been nice.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, that's what you went to school for, man. So it's good to dust off the old reps.
Yeah, I mean, like, only drawback is I can't show up to interviews looking borderline homeless anymore. But
you're right about that. I don't know. It's funny. I mean, I was just having a conversation earlier. I watched The Eternals. Okay, so I watched The Eternals on Disney
Okay.
Plus. And I didn't grow up with the Eternals. I grew up with X-Men, Spider-Man, Batman, Superman, Justice League, Fantastic Four, maybe
But that
Daredevil.
like the original, like that core set of superheroes.
Right.
Like same here, the second and third tier shit, like I know nothing about.
Nothing about it. And the way the reviews came in for Eternals, this must have been the worst movie of all time.
Right.
I sat down and watched it. And one, it's better than advertised. Two, it's a lot of talking, but that's okay because I don't know anything about these people and how they're related to the people that I do know.
Yeah.
And so, but three, I noticed that it's a long movie. Like the movie is pretty long. Like
Right.
It feels over 2 hours, and that's not normally the Marvel go-to. Outside of Endgame or Infinity War, most of them hang around 90 minutes or so.
Right.
I was looking at, and I did the year-end, the top 11 albums of 2021 for Revolt. And one of the things that I noticed with those albums that came out last year is those albums are a lot longer too. Like the era of the short album, that doesn't seem like.
Oh yeah, Donda's like damn near 2 hours long, and
yeah, I mean that one's almost 30 tracks. Drake's got a ton of tracks on there. Moneybagg Yo has like 25 tracks. I mean, these albums are now progressively longer too. And so, I think about that when I think about how podcasting has evolved in digital conversations, right? When I was at DX, the mantra was short content. Everyone was like,
right.
yeah, no, make it short, bite-sized content, retention rate. And I never fully bought into that because even then I would go to the gym and I would see people on treadmills watching Netflix. If it's dope, they'll stick around. But the nature of digital conversation now is squarely in the podcast cipher. And if your podcast, and most of these podcasts that I see and listen to are always pushing like an hour to 2 hours, So it's I think it's going to be continue to be interesting as you have an audio, what started off as primarily an audio medium, increasingly add video as the standard and not the feature, so to speak.
I honestly think we have COVID to thank for a lot of that, mainly just because we were like separated from family and friends for so long. And when you meet up with friends, like what do you typically do? You bullshit about music, TV, movies, other shit that you have in common, any kind of media. And now like that's why so many, just half of the YouTube channels I watch are people talking about TV shows I've already watched, mainly just because it's harder. Partially because of COVID and partially because I'm like a mid-30s adult with responsibilities. It's just harder to like meet up with someone and talk about The Sopranos or Family Guy or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
And so like you still want to fill that void. So now you have like X amount of channels where these people have these conversations with you.
I mean, and so much of this is geared toward the super fan, whether you're a super fan of Sopranos or a super fan of Lupe Fiasco, there's always room to get additional tidbits, at least for me in my life. There's always room for additional tidbits on things that I love, or things that I'm genuinely interested in. I mean, I'm not a Marvel super fan. I'm just not, but I will go watch a Marvel YouTube video on some Marvel movie I'm probably not going to watch. Like I watched Shang-Chi and Black Widow on flights. I wasn't going to click on that.
Yeah.
I wasn't gonna go to the movie and pay for those movies. I don't even know those guys. Give me seven minutes and let me know why they're interested, and I can figure it out later. And but through that, I mean, second of all, I didn't even make it through either one of those. Like I was like, all right.
Black Widow especially seemed awful.
Yeah, I didn't make it through either one of them, but there's always room for that type of, deep dive into something or some lot of things, and BTSN specializes in that, and that's one of the things I'm really excited about.
And on the other side of it, I think it's a great way, like to your point, I think it's a great way to either refer people to like movies and TV or refer them away from it. It's like, this isn't for you. This channel I follow actually got me completely into BoJack Horseman because I saw a video essay about an episode God, the fuck is the dude's name? I want to shout him out. I'll put it in the description. I'll find it later. But it's a analysis of one of the last episodes of BoJack Horseman, which made me like sit my ass down for 20 hours or however long it takes to get through the whole series. I regret nothing.
Yeah, there you go. You know what I mean? I don't know. Have I ever had a show? I guess maybe the Eternals. Maybe the Eternals is a good example of something like that with me, because they were crapping on that movie so hard, like everywhere. Everybody was talking about how bad it was, and I was so curious because I didn't know anything about these guys.
Sure.
And so it was the YouTube videos. It was like it was the independent content creators doing breakdowns on the Eternals that made me curious enough to go ahead and see what it looks like on Disney Plus.
I did have a similar experience with the first Suicide Squad movie. Like the one with Will Smith. I was like, he isn't that bad in it, is he? Oh, nope. He's absolutely that bad in it.
That's another group I knew nothing about too, though. I didn't know anything about Suicide Squad. I knew Harley Quinn and I've heard of Deadshot. I didn't know about any of those other guys.
I knew who Harley Quinn was because like I watched the old Batman cartoons like from the 90s, right. But
and that's where she showed up. She wasn't in anything before those cartoons, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, no, it was like her and the Mark Hamill Joker.
Right, exactly. That was a great show.
Oh yeah, shout out to Mark Hamill.
Yeah.
What tell me a movie you've seen recently, be it from this year or like just you happen to catch it that just blew your mind.
A movie that blew my mind.
Doesn't matter what year it's from, you just have to have seen it recently.
Over the holidays, I went to Greenville, South Carolina to visit my parents. And when I'm in Greenville, I tend to watch a lot of movies at the house,
Yeah.
So I watched this movie, Sum of All Fears, with Morgan Freeman, Ben Affleck. It's a Tom Clancy book turned movie.
Right.
And it was actually really compelling. I generally like Tom Clancy stuff, generally like his movies,
Yeah.
Hunt for Red October is really good. But this one was cool because usually most of his stuff has to do with post-Cold War type conversations, right? And this one was the old president of Russia died, new president comes in, everybody in the West thinks he's a hardliner, except for Jack Ryan. He's the one who's always the insider. Everybody was wrong except for Jack Ryan. But the thing that was compelling about it was they actually let off the nuclear weapon on American soil, right? Usually with certain types of geopolitical type movies, right before the bad things happen, somebody saves the day, right?
Right.
This one, the bomb goes off and there's still like another 45 minutes left in the movie, right? So
Jesus.
That's how bad things could have got. And that stood out to me in that movie, along with the fact too, now this movie came out in 2003, maybe.
It was definitely while I was in high school. I remember it coming out.
Yeah, and there's Russia and United States, but then there was this shadow group of former Nazi wealthy people who were trying to pit America against Russia. And so that's really the core of the conflict in the movies. Like there's this one shadow group of people doing this one particular thing to incite America and Russia to start World War III essentially and just shoot nukes at each other, and they get pretty close. But there's a conversation in there where they're sitting around, where the Nazi guys are sitting around talking about, their mission and why they're excited to do this. And they're talking about how this is 2003 now, and the dude's like, yeah, this is the first time where we have Nazis, neo-Nazis, Aryan nations, and white nationalists all over the world working together on something. It's the first time it's ever happened. It's going to win.
Right.
It's the perfect time to do this. And it just rang so many bells to so many things that we're seeing now 18 years later since this movie came out.
Yeah, I mean, people always give The Simpsons credit for predicting the future, but everyone sleeps on Tom Clancy, apparently.
Right, exactly.
Have you seen Don't Look Up?
Yes, I did. That was a good one too.
Speaking of films that, whatever, the internet exists and you can get a Netflix account. I'm going to spoil this movie. It ends with the world ending, except for like the people who are, rich and probably the least deserving of survival colonizing on Mars.
Yeah, it wasn't even Mars. It was some other planet like
Or yeah, just
22 million years, 22,000 years away.
I
With
never
what's it
realized
called, a
Meryl Streep was
bronzer.
so fucking funny though. But
Yeah, she's good. She's good. That movie, I mean, that movie is so funny too, especially when they were doing the campaign rallies. And like, they don't want you to look up because they're looking down on you.
mhm.
You know? And then that one guy actually looks up. They lied to us. I mean, you know, it's art imitates life, but a lot of times it seems like life imitates art.
I liked it a lot. If I would have liked it even more if, the satire, it didn't bug me that it was like so on the nose because it really was. It just bugged me how like true it was and how the end of the movie is probably closer to what's probably going to happen around here in 20 years. But uh, it's just like we have every opportunity to, steer things in the right direction, and we're just all going to be distracted and stupid and selfish.
You know, there's more disinformation than I think people are being penalized for. I think there should be consequences to disinformation, right? To a small
Right.
degree, right? On lower levels, you have things like libel, you have things like slander, right? That do hold up in court, right? You say something that's categorically false about someone or about some entity, it is potentially a libel situation, a legal situation. But when you have massive entities, massive media conglomerates who specialize in putting out content and conversations that sits on the line between misinformation and disinformation, that becomes a real problem. And we haven't either had the political or social will, one of the two, to come to okay, this is for the better good, we got to change this. And it's not the first time. I mean, media is one of those things that always evolves. In the early 19th century or early 1900s, no one went to the newspaper and expected to hear the truth.
Right.
There was no expectation that the daily news was going to have all facts in it. You go in there, go read a poem, you can go read a short story, you can go read somebody say something crazy about who's running for office. There just wasn't an expectation. And then over years, the media began to base itself off being the public record, of being the place where you can go get the truth about what's happening. And so now that we're not in that place anymore, in the sense of, I don't know how many people expect to see the truth on TV anymore. I don't know how many people expect that. And I think that, but either way, I think that a lot of organizations are walking that line or blurring the line intentionally between misinformation and disinformation.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you get something wrong, that's going to happen in this business. Some things you're going to get wrong. But when you start getting things wrong intentionally for either personal gain or personal desire to see the world burn or whatever it might be, there should be similar legal consequences to that.
Couldn't agree more.
And so, Don't Look Up to Me was that perfect example of that. You had everybody agreed that this rocket was going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the tech billionaire who was funding the administration comes in and says, hey, yo, we can get paid though. And then all of a sudden the whole strategy changes. Mm-hmm. And then now the people who know this, they know this rocket is going to destroy the planet. They know it.
At least we got Kid Cudi and Ariana Grande on our side.
They knew that was going to happen, and they used it for their own personal and political gain. Right. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's criminal activity. And I think that movie did a good job of capturing that.
It really did. Like it did it in both like a tasteful and grounded yet, absurd way. And it's something I appreciaed. And like you wouldn't expect Leo playing a nerd, but I guess anything is possible now.
I mean, was it what was that? Fried green tomatoes or something? He definitely
was he in that?
It was either that one or Don't Eat Gilbert Grape. It's one of those two. But he was definitely he's got a lot of range. We'll say that.
Yeah, no, he's great.
Crazy.
I remember when he won. I remember when he won his Oscar. I was like, I'm really glad Leonardo DiCaprio and Juicy J now have the same amount of Oscars.
The world is now in balance, as it should.
It's why I'm kind of sad I couldn't make it out to LA for that versus with 3 6 and Bone, because I wanted the first Oscar winner I ever interviewed to be Juicy J.
Yeah, it's funny.
You were there though. How was that night from up close?
It was a Bone /3 6 Mafia fan from the '90s dream. It was everything that we could have imagined back then when both those groups were, well, Bone was at their apex, and then the years following when 3 6 was at their apex, down to the fact that they fought. You know, like there was
at the very beginning.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, it was about 30 minutes in. Yeah, that was about 30 minutes in. I'll tell you this.
Busy's, I saw Busy's statement on it after, and his idea was he was trying to talk shit the way like a wrestler will in the ring. Mm-hmm. And then, suck my dick happened, and he just got thrown into another dimension from there.
They both were jawing at each other the whole beginning. Mm-hmm. I mean, that's part of just the versus culture at this point.
Yeah. And plus, really, like their history leading up to it.
Right, but that was ancient history, though. To the point, I mean, they've done shows together since then. They've Crazy's collaborated with a bunch of those guys over the years at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's not like it's a recent tension, but Busy's point was also, because most of the night, Lazy Bone was on the mic. Crazy was almost non-existent. He wasn't really saying anything. Lazy was driving most of the jarring back and forth. And Busy said he had a cold. His son got him sick with a cold. So his voice was dry or something. And so he was trying not to say too much, but he tried to get one off. He wanted to get something off and participate a little bit. And that's what he said. Y'all ain't gonna be mocking us, you ugly motherfuckers.
So good.
And then that's when Juicy J said, he invited that man to his eggplant. You know what I'm saying? You can't be doing that on stage. You can't be just, telling people there's certain things that are always going to be disrespectful. And Busy Bone turned into Busy Bone. I mean, that's Busy Bone. Busy Bone was so Busy Bone, he wasn't even at the photo shoot for the Art of War album cover. He was so busy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like they had to pull a picture from the first of the month music video and put that on there.
That's about as busy as it gets. Yeah.
That's about as busy as it gets. So, just the time.
Have you ever interviewed him before?
I haven't interviewed Busy, but I've hung out with him a few times. I've spent time around.
So,
him.
But like he actually is that way in person.
Oh yeah.
Like he's 100%. And I figured like he's been on here like 3 times. And the first time I was like, all right, he's probably going to be a little more subdued. I'm not going to go in expecting anything. And I go in like eventually to, their thing with the Migos. And I just like let him tell the story leading up to his IG live where he has like the rifle and he's carrying that around. And he says probably the greatest thing ever said on this podcast, which is, and that's when I pulled out a shotgun, what I like to call the musket.
Right. That's what I mean, man. I mean,
and I had to cover my microphone and like hold back from laughing. And thank God, like the camera wasn't actually on me. This was all audio.
Right.
I was like, this is my life now.
Man, that's a great behind the scenes piece right there. That's funny.
I'll write an article for BTSN right now. BTSN.blog, everybody.
That's the time when Busy Bone, and that's when I pulled out the shotgun. Yeah,
that's when funny. I pulled out the shotgun.
That's funny. That's really funny. I mean, I'm a diehard Bone Thugs fan. I got
same
East 99 up here on somewhere. I think it's over my shoulder back there. And but it was just a great experience going to that versus. I couldn't have asked for more.
Oh yeah, I got into Bone mainly because I guess this is a very, very early example of the internet getting you into things. There was a blog in like 2000 or 2001 called the 10 Rap Commandments. And everybody wrote with a slant. I remember like one of the guys like did a retrospective of Illmatic and it was like 2 out of 5 stars. but one of the other writers was way into Bone, and so he reviewed like, Art of War, and then he got into like Heaven's Movie and The Gift, and like he was the one I kind of gravitated to a little more. And this is when he had to like actually pay money for music, and I like went to like 5 different stores, finally found Heaven's Movie, like again, regretted nothing.
Heaven's Movie is underrated. If it's not underrated, it's definitely underappreciated or under talked about. That to me is the best Bone solo album that was any of them have made. And no disrespect to Thug Mentality. I know a lot of people like that one.
I put Thug Mentality on the same level if they put it down to one disc.
Yeah, it's bloated, just like Art of War is bloated,
Yeah.
But Heaven's Movie, man, I mean, even from a beat selection standpoint, I mean, that had some of the best beats in Bone Thugs post Easy rest in peace history. I mean, post Art of War, definitely post Art of War, because the post Art of War stuff to me is where their ear started wavering a bit. I like just the type of production that, at least for me, that I appreciated them for, seemed to be harder to find. It was a lot fewer crossroads, a lot more if I could teach. Too few crossroads, too many if I could teach the world.
Like Resurrection was like 80% if I could teach the worlds.
That's what I mean. It's like at some point, if you're gonna go back, it's
like they were getting older, like they're trying to be more introspective. They can't be, just blindly violent anymore. But I get it, but
people do that all the time.
True.
I mean, I don't remember Wu-Tang ever. It takes a Better Tomorrow before Wu-Tang starts really loading their albums up with stuff like that.
Method Man still sounds like Method Man 30 years ago. Like it is like that's one of those like age doesn't really do shit to you arguments. Is just like listen to Method Man's catalog.
I think that Method Man, his catalog is pretty thin compared to the rest of them. He's put out fewer albums. I mean, I don't know. I guess if you add the Blackout too. So he's got 2 Blackouts.
Oh yeah, there is Blackout.
He's got Tekal. He's got T2. And then maybe I'm missing one, but I think it's 420 the day after. 421 the day after.
Yeah.
And that to me is his best album, right? That's the one that's most diverse from a commentary standpoint, conversation standpoint. Still has all those quintessential Method Man, I could rap better than you, tracks and positioning on there. I think that if Method Man put out an album now and it was produced by the right people, it was produced by RZA, let's say, I think it would surprise a whole lot of people because, he's always been one of the best rappers in the group. But I also think that he spent most of his time rapping about rapping. And by the time you get to 421 the day after, there's less of that on there than there is on his previous works. And so I know he knows that. And I know if you put out another album, you get to learn more about Method Man, which is the only thing that's really missing from his catalog. You don't really know anything about him.
Yeah. I mean, I was referring more to just like, even including his guest verses in my analysis. I will, one of the best throwback songs that's come out in recent years is probably that remix to the Tiana Taylor song, where it's like him and Ghostface and Raekwon.
Right.
And even
what was that? I know that
Gonna Love Me
too. Yeah. That video is crazy too.
Oh yeah, like it's so like beautifully early 2000s. I kind of wanted to like turn on Direct Effect at the time, but I do want to go back to the topic of disinformation. Do you think it's happening because restrictions are either being looked over or not being updated, or do you think just how easy it is to distribute media is?
We've been in a time of we've been on a fast track to deregulation since 1980, to the election of 1980. I mean, every industry has been deregulated. Whether that's from the type of products that could be sold within an industry. I mean, one of the first ones I remember was cartoons. In the 60s, 70s, there used to be this rule that there couldn't be certain levels of violence in cartoons. right? And then in the 80s, they changed that. They said, okay, well, you can now have realistic violence in cartoons, but you have to have a PSA at the end. There has to be a message. That's why G.I. Joe at the end of every episode, after shooting lasers at each other and flying around, dropping bombs on everybody, there's now you know, and no one's half the battle. Or at the end of Thundercats, there would be like Rhino show up and say, hey, kids, just remember that. Look both ways before you cross the street or whatever. So you've seen it over there.
It's great to learn because knowledge is power.
Yeah, it's always that kind of stuff, right? In the 90s, that's when the banking sector got deregulated. And then also the FCC Act of 1995 was huge, right? So what that did was allow, there used to be a certain number of, only one company can own a certain percentage of the marketplace, right?
Sure.
So it was intended to create competition. It was intended to foster competition in the media space, right? Well, after they deregulate that, then now media companies can buy up everything. That's why you don't have like 5 companies of media. It's just like Vivendi, Universal, Disney, Comcast, AT&T. Is that it? You know, Spectrum?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's no parity anywhere. There's no competition in the space. So when you have that type of monopolistic positioning, you're in position to not only put out whatever you want, but you're also in position to lobby Congress or write bills that allow you to not have to pay any consequences for that level of disinformation that you're putting out there. So that's from the macro. You toss in the internet, you toss in, you know, YouTube, you toss in the ability for independent content creators to have their own platforms, build their own audiences. And then on top of that, incentivize them to do things that are algorithmically favorable, like put a crazy headline on it, be angrier than everybody else, tell the most lies and fall forward fast and move forward. You know, hey, this person is clearly wrong, but they're entertaining, you know, and then you allow the law to say, or then when people get called out, like Tucker Carlson he was sued for some of the things he said. He went to court. His lawyer argued he's not a news person. He is just an entertainer. Same thing with Sean Hannity. You had Alex Jones, for example, with all the stuff that happened based on his commentary around Sandy Hook. Yeah. Those parents sued them. They got sued like crazy, right? And the argument there too was that he's just some guy talking. He's not an actual journalist. There should be an expectation to get truth. That to me is when there starts to be a problem. Here are these people who, whether or not they are a journalist or an entertainer, are marketing themselves as the only source of truth. They're marketing themselves as if they're a verifiable news source. But when it gets time to go to court, hey man, I'm just out here talking, dog. Right. That to me is where a lot of these lines are blurred, right? Misinformation is when you get stuff wrong on accident or facts change, right? Dr. Fauci, for example, you know, I see, first of all, everybody remembers what it was like when COVID first started. There just wasn't as much information, right? Yeah. And now I'm not a crazy person. So on Wednesday, I might do something differently than I did on Monday, depending on what happens on Tuesday, right? So any certain fluctuations and things he said or didn't say or whatever, to me falls closer to misinformation than it does disinformation, right? Sometimes people get stuff wrong, right?
Disinformation is a deliberate attempt to manipulate or to mislead.
Misinformation. No, disinformation.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Disinformation is deliberate attempt. Misinformation is, hey, dog, our fact checkers won't break this weekend. We had a deadline, had to hit it, something like that. Or, hey, I thought this was true, but then this other person said this other thing. So now we're going to update the story and let you know what the real facts are, right?
So the real difference between the two is intention.
Intention. And I don't know about anybody else, but I look around and I see a lot of intentionally wrong stuff. I've got a lot of stuff wrong in my career, right? And wherever I got stuff wrong, I always did the best I could to update the article or provide a correction or whatever it is, right? But we never went out, no organization I've ever been a part of went out every day, said, hey, we have such a slant that we will put out disinformation to galvanize our audience who doesn't want to know the truth anyway. I mean, I've never had that experience before. I mean, the closest thing I can think about is like, oh, what's the name of that paper? I can't think of the name of the paper. There was one, everybody in the media, like, but back in 2001, maybe it's 3, the lead up to the Iraq war. Everybody was just taking what was coming out the White House as the truth. Everyone was like, oh, Colin Powell said that there's weapons of mass destruction, so that's got to be it. Everybody was on the same page except for one newspaper, right? And they had the one getting the Pulitzer because they're the only ones that were correct about, hey, there really weren't weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. So there can be, we've seen real world consequences when there's misinformation, right? To me, that's misinformation. Those people were, I don't think that, you know, the average newspaper was walking around saying, we know this is false, but we got to, you know, follow the administrative line. I don't think that, maybe that's true because, you know, we're in a state of terror. It's 9/11. Every time you turn on TV, there's a different color code about how scared we're supposed to be.
Right.
And one paper was brave enough to go the other way. Now I think there's more emphasis on disinformation because of deregulation, competition with independent content creators, and the metrics and mediums in which people receive compensation for their efforts. Your stuff goes farther when you're angrier. You get paid more money when you're wrong.
Yeah, it's like, you know, it's being like published that people have a legitimate addiction to outrage now as a result.
Yeah, it's an outrage economy.
Yeah.
Like if I'm not angry at something, do I really care?
Yeah.
I'm like, hey man, he was just sounding no. I mean, I watch the sports guys, not the sports guys, but like, you know, like you could turn on ESPN or Fox Sports and they're just yelling at each other every day.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're just yelling all the time.
I mean, personally, I know I watched a lot more Seth Meyers during the Trump administration than I do now.
You know, definitely. Well, Trump was wildly entertaining.
Yeah.
For everything Trump, whether you like Trump or you don't like Trump, you can't tell me that dude wasn't entertaining.
You did a fucking video about that. Just like he won the election for being more likable.
Right. I mean, in comparison to Hillary, people who like Hillary don't like Hillary.
Yeah, like, you know, at the time would never do it now, but like at the time I was like, yeah, I'd like smoke a bowl and just talk shit with Trump. Like, why not? That he was on Shade 45, whatever. Like, it's cool.
You know, the thing I liked about, you know, the thing with Trump to me, right? There's really 2 things that kept me from voting for Trump, right? There's always been 2 things that kept me from voting for him. One, when it comes to policy, he's just like everybody else on the red team. They just give all the money to rich people and corporate, like they don't pay taxes, right? Their whole platform is like, we don't want to pay taxes. I'd never vote for that guy. You know, that guy has only made life more difficult for a lot of people I know and love throughout my entire life.
Like, I voted for Hillary because I figured she'd be a stab in the arm, but Trump would be a shot in the face.
Yeah, I mean, and 2, there was too much disinformation around Hillary for me to vilify her the same way. Like they had her talking about the Benghazi hearings. She was in these hearings all the time. I'm like
13 hours straight.
Look, I'm half my family. On my mom's side is a military family. You know, my grandfather was World War II. My uncle died in Vietnam. Right. I'm not anti-military. You know, or I'm not anti people who serve in the military. Right.
Sure.
But like, 4 dudes died. 4 military guys died. Right. It kind of sounds like the job is to go to war. Like the job is to go to war.
Mm-hmm.
So the level of scrutiny that was going on to this thing that wasn't even, you know, she wasn't even the president when that happened. You know, all the baby blood stuff. Okay, now maybe let's say there is this crazy cabal out there that is doing crazy stuff, right? I'm definitely not hearing it from, I'm pretty sure the homeboy on the other end of this, who created that YouTube video doesn't know that. I'm pretty sure, you know, they're not that close to it. And there was so much of that going on with Hillary that I was like, you know, there wasn't enough real world negative things for me, right? My problem with Trump was they always give money to that's really the only thing that whole party does. And he had to do that to galvanize the audience. And I didn't like the people he was yoking with, you know, like you can't tell me a lot of that stuff isn't, I know a dog whistle when I hear a dog whistle, you know, I know what that looks like, you know what I'm saying? So, I mean, now here's something that's true, because this happened in the same thing. I don't think I've ever talked about this on record. I was going to vote for Trump the second time. I was going to vote for, and when COVID hit, I was definitely going to vote for Trump the second time, right? Because we don't see great change in this country in ways that I believe is necessary, or things that really affect people from, you know, who are either from similar communities or like-minded in you know, perspective. We don't see great change until a bunch of people die, right? And like it takes like a civil war, it takes Vietnam, it takes World War II and a bunch of soldiers coming home and they don't have jobs. It takes a Great Depression. It takes something big to get real good change. I was like, oh man, we got to have healthcare
name
everywhere.
one civil liberty that doesn't have blood all over it.
Right. I'm like, we got to have healthcare everywhere. Oh, this is what's up, right? And so, because that many people were being affected by this, it felt like that many people were dying from this. Sad to say, you know, I'm not happy about the death, but I looked at this, I'm like, oh, but the polls never matched up. The polls didn't match up when it came to things like whether this dude was doing a good job or a bad job, right? So all his people were like, yeah, we still love him. So I was like, all right, well, I'll vote for him too, man. Let's get him in here because he's doing a good job. Let's keep this train wreck going. Same thing always happens with red team presidents anyway. They always get a recession. They always get some terrorist attack. The economy's always collapsing with them. Some big natural disaster happens, but they're very good at they never balance the budget, and people get hurt, and everything gets a little bit better slowly, right? Let's just keep that train going. It wasn't until the uprising that summer when I was like, can't do it. Can't do it.
The whole George Floyd thing.
I don't like him talking like that. You know, it's like that type of stuff was where I was like, nah, I just can't get on board with that. You know, but I was going to vote for him the second time, and I would have voted for him the first time if he wasn't hanging with all the, you know, dog whistlers.
Yeah, it's it's you know, it's definitely, you know, when I first started this podcast, you know, and it was before Trump got elected the first time. I had an old classmate on. She became a CEO of this company, and we were just talking most of the time about just how surreal it felt growing up in the Bush administration. Because, you know, we started high school in 2001. 9/11 happened our first week of high school.
Oh,
like
wow.
it like the day before our first day, Aaliyah died, and then like maybe a week, 2 weeks, 9/11 happened, and then it just got more absurd from there. And like I thought that was like a crazy time to live through. I can't imagine. Like I have kids who are 7 and 8, and like them talking about what they like vaguely remember in 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's I wonder, so like, you know, there's a lot of talk about how at home learning, the sociological, psychological effects that's going to have on kids going forward. I'm concerned about that too. You know, imagine just having to be a kid and wear a mask every day. You know, how skeptical are you of the world around you and anyone that you meet? But you couple that with school shootings and a bunch of adults that don't do anything about it. Yeah. The call is always to have more guns. Like, I didn't grow up with, we had fire drills when I was a kid. We didn't have school shooting drills when I was a kid. So now you've got.
We had one in my school in like 8th grade.
You had a school shooting in your school?
Yeah, it was like Columbine happened, and then like the 2 or 3 happened right after.
The copycats.
Yeah.
You had one in your school?
In my school, in Oak Park, Illinois.
And so what happened? I missed that one. I mean, I missed that whole shooting there.
Oh no, we had a drill. We didn't have a shooting.
Oh, okay. I'm over here saying like, whoa.
Oh no, like, no, it didn't happen to us, thankfully.
I was like, I missed this Oak Park story. Someone let me know. But no, like but for real, like just the having to grow up with school shooting drills and grow up and be, you know, concerned about catching a virus, you know, having to wear a mask every day, like that to me is like just something I'm very concerned about with the youth of tomorrow.
Yeah, like PTSD is a fucking thing.
For real. Yeah, that's the truth, man.
For real.
That's the
Well,
truth.
Justin, I cannot thank you enough. It is always a pleasure talking to you, my friend.
Yeah, likewise, man.
Where can we find you on social media? What projects can we look forward to?
Yeah, man. At the company man on everything: YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. At the company man. You can find me anywhere else. Check out BTSN, Behind the Scenes Network, the future of access entertainment. We're on right now. BTSN.blog. We can get us on Fire Stick, Roku. Check out both of those there. BTSN.web if you just want to see the platform. We're still growing. We're an exciting organization, and make sure you check out Music 360 as well. That's available on iOS. So also, yeah. And also I'm looking for interns too. So anybody out here wants to intern, let me know.